Alrighty, and this is episode 3 of the Sales Sleuth Podcast with Ben Sturtevant from Elite360.io. Right, you and I had a very interesting way of meeting on the Go High Level space where I had absolutely no idea what I was doing, and you were kind enough to show me a couple of tricks on how to automate these things and be a lot more clever than I am. What's a quick rundown of what you do? Right, Ben, over at Elite 360. I know that you're the co-founder and you guys do a lot of work with coaches. I think you listed as over 400 coaches that you guys have worked
so
with.
we've been in the coaching space for a little over 4.5 years, coaching and consulting. So we basically help online coaches scale their offers, grow it, build it, market it, the whole thing. We have done for you services. And for years, we've been referring people to outside tech stacks that are really complicated but they need to run and market their business. And then when we created our own software, which is the Elite 360, initially mainly for our clients, just to help their business be a lot more efficient. We specialize in really plugging those holes. I call it the leaky bucket syndrome, where businesses are missing out on sales, appointments, leads because they don't have a really strong back-end marketing system. So that's really our specialty. It's what we take a lot of pride in, and helping clients get quick wins just by implementing some simple things, helping them optimize, make more money from the same traffic, same revenue that they have in their business.
So that actually opens up an interesting discussion I had recently with someone that does more of the marketing aspect on this for like e-commerce related stuff. So Facebook ads, those types of things, where we spoke about the business sort of trying to optimize themselves out too quickly. So when you're looking at sort of helping a coach get these quick wins, what type of holes are you guys plugging, and when do you know which holes to plug, right? From a sales perspective, so that they can focus on making sales as opposed to trying to play catch up.
Well, typically what we'll do is we'll look at their entire, client acquisition journey, right? Their marketing system, marketing funnel that they take someone through from, attraction all the way through becoming a paid client. And we'll usually start with lead generation, which is, usually the easiest. And what we find with most of our clients is their offer just isn't strong enough, right? Their positioning of their offer just isn't strong enough. So we'll do a quick audit of that process and try to help them optimize that. Usually it's some very simple language in ads that has a really, really big impact. Most marketers, or most advertisers, I should say, if they're doing their own advertising for their own company, they're not outsourcing it to an agency. They're trying to speak in a way that makes sense to them rather than than actually connecting and speaking to their ideal client, right? And speaking in terms of what they're looking for. So just making some quick little copy changes, or maybe, video or image changes in the ads is a really simple way. And what you see really quickly is, immediate boosts in things like click-through rate, engagement, obviously leads. So their CPMs go down, their cost per leads go down, their KPIs overall improve. So that's on the lead generation stage. And then we just go down the funnel from there. Obviously, if they're starting to get good lead KPIs are there. And then we look at, obviously, the next stage of, typically our clients are looking for appointments. So they're looking for a certain percentage for their business to have a certain number of leads, percentage booking calls, scheduling appointments. And so we'll help identify, okay, if there's a hole or not, if there's a blockage, if they're not getting that percentage, we'll help them optimize with certain things like automation, implementing some of the tools that we offer in our system, follow-up sequences, that type of thing. Personalization with the marketing is big with appointment follow-ups. Even though it's automated, making it look very personal, we implement some things like personalized text images that has their name on it, voicemail drops. Those types of things can really help nurture that appointment. So that's the next phase, right? So once you get there, it's the show up, right? Are people showing up to the calls? If there's a large no-show rate, that's a blockage that we're looking for. We'll go back and do things like, okay, what page are they seeing after? They schedule their call. Again, what's the nurture sequence like with their follow-ups, making sure that, they're not just relying on a booking software like Calendly or Schedule Ones just to send stock, email, canned responses like your appointment is in 1 hour. But again, getting more personal. That's really where marketing is going, is the personalization. Then the phase after that, obviously, is, okay, they're on the call. They got a good show up, right? So they got good cost per lead, good book call percentage. They're getting a good show up rate. And then we're looking obviously at their sales and their closing, right? And if they're not at that percentage, then we're evaluating their sales calls. We'll listen to them, give feedback. Usually we'll put them in touch with some training and content to help them improve their skills. Or if what we found is it's one of two extremes. There really isn't anything between. Either they're really good at sales and they don't need a lot of help, maybe just some refinement and a little bit of coaching can help them with that, or they're never going to be good at sales. And so what we'll do is we'll help them outsource that to someone that can help them, that will actually do it for them.
Yeah, so that actually segues quite nicely, because the whole point of this podcast is to sort of have that conversation about what salespeople need to look for if they're going to go work at a company in terms of tech and what the marketing looks like, and also bridging that gap in reverse for the marketing guys to sort of get an idea of sort of what the salespeople are doing in regards to what their work needs to be and what makes a good person to bring on board to complement your guys' work as a marketing team. So as far as the sort of show up rates and these types of things, what do you tend to optimize for? If you're running a campaign for someone and say that your lead gen and the wording and the copy is great, but you're running into a bottleneck with the show up rate and bookings. So how do you guys optimize for that? What do you think of as a good booking to show up rate in terms of how you guys?
It really depends on how they're running traffic. So we have some clients that will go straight to some sort of lead magnet, like a squeeze page, landing page. They opt in and they'll hit some sort of, lead magnet delivery, like a VSL, like a sales letter, video sales letter, maybe a masterclass training of some kind where they're giving good content and then they're pitching, they're weaving in their offer to schedule a call, right? How they can help them further. So we'd evaluate that. If that's their method and that's the process that they're using, we'll evaluate. Typically it's going to be either their lead magnet isn't strong enough or their VSL isn't strong enough to convert, right? So we'll help them optimize that with scripts. We'll help them, maybe it's the video or the audio or something simple in their VSL just wasn't good quality, right? That can help a lot. Or maybe it's too long or it's not long enough. And then obviously we'll help them optimize the page as well. We try to accomplish, some people are visual and they like to read and some people like to listen. So, the VSL can help with that. The video itself can help, but also the content on the page. Is it hitting all of the check boxes, right? Are you showing people how you're going to help them? Are you, making it clear on what your program is going to do and the problems it's going to solve? The credibility, obviously the proof factor is huge, testimonials and whatnot. We give our Elite 360 clients, they get a template that basically gives them that, to kind of fill out and plug in. The other type of advertiser that we work with are people who are running most of their ads directly to some sort of messenger, either Facebook or Instagram. And that works a little bit differently. The show up rate tends to be a lot higher because you're not relying purely on your VSL page to do all the work for you. Obviously you have your follow-up emails and your follow-up automation to help nurture that as well. But when you're running ads directly to Messenger, it can help because you're essentially doing some of that, that sales work, the pre-frame, what I call pre-frame to the sales call, you're doing it in Messenger. So you're building some of that trust and some of that credibility directly by having a genuine conversation with people.
Right.
Which certainly helps. Now, we don't work with a ton of e-commerce, but if some of your audience is in that space, obviously it doesn't apply to appointments, right? There's no bottleneck there, but essentially it's the same principle, right? If you're driving people to a sales page, where are your bottlenecks? You're looking at where are people getting stuck in your process. So I would be looking at would use things like Hotjar, heat maps to figure out where people are looking, where they're spending your time, where they're bouncing off your site, and stuff like that to identify some of those holes in your system.
Right. You also spoke a little bit about the sort of working with sales trainers or people to outsource the sales to if the owner is not so inclined to the sales. And I've done some work in scenarios where the owner sort of just offloaded sales. And there was no real documentation that took place on how to have the sales conversations and how to qualify and disqualify, which to a large extent, I'm getting the impression marketing does now as well, right? So the automation side is what you show people, and having drop-offs at that point being very intentional with those things. I'd like to chat about that at some point too, as far as the automation goes, because there's some exciting stuff I've heard about that. But how do you guys work together with the sales team? So there's a big philosophy sort of around marketing informs sales and sales can inform marketing. The two of them should work together to sort of streamline and optimize the whole process from leads in to clients onboarded. What do you guys
Yes,
typically look for
we
from
actually
feedback wise?
created an in-house company. It's a sister company that we own,
Mm-hmm.
that is very, very familiar with what we do. It was,
Mm-hmm.
one of the co-founders was someone that was actually one of our in-house salespeople for our own company. So they know our clients inside and out. So that was a logical next step. What we specialize in is training the core sales strategies for the high ticket
Mm-hmm.
space. That's our niche, right?
Mm-hmm.
We don't try to place salespeople with just any type of business.
Mm-hmm.
So number one, they're being trained in the principles that are predisposing them to success. Now that doesn't
Mm-hmm.
necessarily mean that they're going to be 100% fluent in that person's offer. So
Mm-hmm.
what our offer to them is, to that business, if someone comes to us and says, "Hey, I need a salesperson," we don't just say, "Okay, here you go." We'll help them. We'll place them, but then we'll also
Mm-hmm.
train them and support them while they learn that offer. And
Mm-hmm.
typically it's pretty easy because most of them are pretty similar. But
Mm-hmm.
there's a system that they go through as they get trained with us. It's a lot of the core principles that most people go through with sales, and then obviously when they get into the offer that they're working with, it gets a lot more
Mm-hmm.
specific.
Mm. So as far as that sort of feedback loop goes, because oftentimes I'll sort of run into the what's the word for the roadblock, is that marketing will just inform things and then sales should make do with whatever the hell comes through, right? Do your best kind of thing. But the sales guys tend to get a really good sense of what people are talking about. And you spoke about that earlier and having that included in your messaging. So how do you guys establish that channel between the marketing and sales guys so that if something pops up regularly enough in a sales call, that it can be put into the marketing? And how do you integrate that so that it makes sense?
Well, first of all,
lost?
our sales team and what we teach our clients to do, their sales team should be on all of their daily manager calls. So we do one every morning. So our
Mm-hmm.
in-house sales team, for example, is on our call every morning. We're also communicating throughout the day. We have our sales team report after
Mm-hmm.
every call. They submit their notes from the call and give
Mm-hmm.
feedback, whether it's a close or a deposit or a lost sale. They're reporting on that throughout the day. And they also were communicating with us, the marketing team, all the time about quality. Quality is probably our biggest focus, right? So it's, if there's any trends that we're seeing where it's really poor quality or, broke mindset or whatever it may be, if there's any disturbing trends, obviously we address that in our marketing with our marketing team. So there's I would say, daily, multiple times a day, daily communication with our sales team. And we teach our clients to do the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Which is the small little nugget there, right? It's the daily communication between the teams. Because
Huge.
if there was ever a nemesis system in business, it would probably be marketing and sales for some odd reason. I don't understand why. But my next question, right? Because I asked this question to another guy that also works on the high level sort of platform, building automations. What should a good funnel look like? I know that depends. It's sort of objective or subjective in the sense that it depends on the business, but what are the key things that if a person comes into a business and says this is a great funnel, it's doing the things that it should do, versus this is absolute tripe and it should be switched off?
Dylan, it's funny because I've seen some terrible looking funnels that have incredible conversions and bring in incredible leads. So to answer your question, it really doesn't matter what it looks like. The most important thing is the offer, what you're providing as a solution to their problem. If you're really, really good at your messaging and to be good at messaging, it really is just about addressing that core issue for your avatar. If you really honed in on what they're after and you have a solution for it, and there's not a lot of noise in the space, a lot of other similar offers, you'll stand out. They'll opt into the ugliest looking page. It does not matter. And they'll convert into scheduled appointments on the worst looking VSL video you've ever seen. I've seen it. I've audited thousands of businesses over the last 4.5 years. And I can tell you unequivocally, it does not matter what the page looked like. It's all about the offer.
All right, that makes sense. It sort of tracks with what I've heard from some of the guys that are in the sales space. So also, sort of helping salespeople networking get those good offers, but the big things are is the offer and
Yeah.
do they have a proven sales process?
I should
Right?
say, I mean, okay, within reason. I mean, yes, aesthetically, you need the page to look, you know,
Mm-hmm.
you can't have it look like a second grader designed it, obviously,
Of course.
really bright contrasting colors that are awful, but I mean,
Mm-hmm.
if you wanted a fail safe black and white, right? Just black text on a white page with an opt-in, right? And
Mm-hmm.
on your VSL, a good headline that's in congruence with
Mm-hmm.
your opt-in page. Congruency is a big thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
If your ad says one thing and your landing page is completely different,
This is
you're
another.
not going to get opt-ins. If
Mm-hmm.
your ad and your landing page and your VSL can all be congruent, and in
Mm-hmm.
brand too, it's going to help, right? But I would always caution people more towards the offer and focus in on making that attractive. And then the other percentage, the 5 to 10% more will come as your volume starts to increase. That's when you can start to dissect, okay, what color should this be, and where should this be on the page, and
Mm-hmm.
what should we have here? Do we need any fancy little widgets? All that stuff is
Mm-hmm.
just optimization. But for
Yeah.
most people, they
Mm-hmm.
don't even drive enough traffic for that to even matter at this point.
Mm-hmm.
You start getting
Yeah.
into the $1,000 a day spend kind of ad spend
Mm-hmm.
range where you're driving some volume.
Mm-hmm.
That's when 1% here, 1% there can really make a difference.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'd like to drill down a little bit onto the congruency side, right? Because this is also something I've noticed is that sometimes things break down pretty quickly if there's marketing is saying one thing very congruently and consistently, and then when it gets to the salesperson, something breaks and then you get leads that drop off, right? So how do you guys connect that point so that sales and marketing are saying the same thing and that there's congruence and fluency in the messaging from the point that people come in to the point of the sales conversation, effectively a close? How do you guys build that out?
Well,
Because you guys
it's
work in
pretty
both
drilled
spaces.
into our entire company.
Mm-hmm.
Like everyone from, our messenger, $10, $15 an hour messengers, all the way up to our C-level executives. They are
Mm-hmm.
all on the same page. They know what our offer is. They knew who our ideal client is, and they know what
Mm-hmm.
we can do for people. So our coaches, our sales team, our marketing team, our executives, they're all on the same page. They all know, who we're speaking to and what we offer, what we could do for people. A lot of it has to do also is when our sales team makes a sale, that doesn't end their relationship with that client.
Mm-hmm.
They're not involved technically in the coaching aspect or, but they do help a little bit with the onboarding.
Mm-hmm.
They'll do check-ins with them. This is all automated. I should add,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
They're not physically, following up with them, but
Mm-hmm.
they are checking in. They are getting responses back, and then they'll relay some of that response back to other people in the team, which just keeps them plugged in. So the sales team always has a pretty good finger on the pulse
Mm-hmm.
of what clients are going through.
Mm-hmm. So that opens up another interesting point, right? To the automation side, which will go into the whole future-proof discussion of when are we getting replaced by robots and then we no longer need to talk to people anymore later. But to what extent do people automate things like the onboarding, and how do you do it well? Because that used to be the arena of things like account managers, right? Is bring a person on board, you'll take them to a game of golf, maybe give them a cocktail or two, maybe a hot dog, and congratulations, you have a happy customer, right? So how do you guys think about implementing the automation side of client onboarding so that it still feels personal, but doesn't come across robotic, which has the risk of some of these automation things?
Yeah, well, it depends on the offer. Obviously, the more expensive, obviously, the more you're probably going to be more hands on, right? So I'll talk about two different ones. The software that we have, Elite 360, it's inexpensive. It's $97 a month. It doesn't require a person to hold your hand through it. However, what we do is we've automated. They obviously join, they sign up themselves, they'll get automation that will give them access to the program. There's an onboarding sequence that they go through that guides them through some setup videos, but we do offer a one-to-one complimentary call where they get on and the person, it's a 20-minute call just to point them in the right direction, just to encourage implementation, because we have a 7-day free trial. So that's a goal to help them stick, right? It just helps. On our coaching side, it's obviously a much, much bigger investment. So there's obviously some initial automation that gets done. The salesperson makes a close. And then the person is then input into our system, and some automation will take over that will get them access to some course content. It will trigger out some emails, obviously, so they can access certain things, certain documents and things that they're going to need for their onboarding. But then we actually do have an onboarding specialist, their coach, essentially, will take them through, their first 1 hour. And then we have automated check-in that will, continue to coach them throughout that process. But then there's also live touch that's available whenever they need it. It just happens to be our offer. So, and I've seen that also with really expensive SaaS companies, that, $5,000-$10,000 SaaS programs that, once the sale's done, it's not done, right? The onboarding person will help them, whether it's migration services or,
you talk about like the big enterprise stuff,
support, right? As you're going through, so you could automate it, as to an extent. Where we use automation the most with our clients are things like check-ins. So we will do, we use our Go High Level system, the Elite 360 system. We use it for, we'll do voicemail drops. So our coach can send an automated voicemail drop. It's pre-programmed out through our client journey. It's a 12-week journey that they go through. And every week there'll be a voicemail drop, just, hey, just checking in, making sure everything's okay. It sounds very personal. Same thing with text. We scatter them out so it doesn't look like it's one right after the other, right? So we're using some time delays and some of that automation. We use personalized images to add their name to certain things, which adds a level of personalization. I mentioned that personalization earlier. So we are using automation quite a bit throughout their client journey, but we're trying to personalize it as much as we can.
Right. Okay, cool. The only real sort of last big question, right? And then we can talk as freeform as you like. But I've noticed a lot of push in things like the automation side. So big companies like Sales Loft and Zendesk and these bigger sort of software things that support the marketing and function spaces are also adding a lot more automation things, right? So as a sales guy, you tend to get the conversation when you're talking to a sales trainer, don't worry, you've always got job security because everyone's always going to need salespeople because people buy from people. But here we're talking about automation stuff, and more people are getting attached to text messaging and doesn't really always want to hop on a call with someone. How far do you think automation is going to go in regards to the sales function and potentially replacing salespeople? And is that even a thing that you think will happen?
Again, I think it has a lot to do with the product. I think higher price premium services, no, I don't think people will ever be replaced. And I'll explain why. There was a few years ago when you remember ManyChat, right? The automated bot software came out and it was all the rage and people thought it was going to take over the world. And it didn't in our space. And the reason is because people got so used to it. They expected every conversation to be an automated one. And it very quickly numbed consumers. And what I'm seeing now over the last year or two is that personalization is back. People want to have real personal conversations. The trick is to try to combine the two. And I think that's, what we've done a good job of. And I think what most businesses should try to do, because I don't think you'll ever be able to replace people because that trust factor is getting harder and harder. There's so much noise online and there's so many people saying the same things, and marketers tend to kind of be a product of their own creation and kind of ruin each other. Right. And it's this cyclical thing that happens, everyone starts saying the same thing and people start to get numb to it. So being able to separate yourself out and be an actual person and get on the phone and build that trust factor quickly is really powerful. So we use automation. So let me give you a very specific example so you can see exactly what we do. We'll run an ad straight to IG message for one of our lead magnets, right? Maybe it's a training on how to grow your business or, run ads or improve your lead KPI or whatever. The moment they opt in, an automated message fires to them and gives them a link to a course that they can register for free. Okay. It's a lead magnet, just like sending them to an opt-in page. The difference is now that they're in our IG messaging system, we have a team of messengers that can actually go in and have a follow-up conversation. Now, the first message that follows up is automated. So the first one that they get is automated, that delivers the lead magnet. The next one that they get is automated. It's set on a time delay. So 1 hour later, they get an automated message that says, hey, just wanted to make sure you got logged into the course. Okay, how's it going so far? It's an automated message. When they reply back, a human being takes over. Okay.
Right.
And they begin that conversation. So it's kind of like inbound sales, right? But it's automated. It's half automated. So the automation is doing the heavy lifting, because the hardest part in sales is getting people to engage, right? And so our ads take care of some of that. The automation takes care of some of that. And then by the time our messengers engage, they're dealing with someone who obviously has replied, which is, if you can get someone to reply in your marketing, it's gold, whether it's to an email or to a phone call or to a message or whatever. That really is a secret. So I don't think it's ever going to be replaced. But I think a hybrid of the two is where the money's at.
Let's explore that a bit, because I'm curious about the difference from something like a coaching product, where it's not necessarily as complex of a sale in terms of there's a lot of moving parts and implementing new softwares and this type of stuff like you would have with SaaS, right? Which is also the new big hot thing that everyone talks about. But how do you imagine that hybridization going, say, in 2 years' time? Because the automation thing isn't new, but it became more prominent recently. Right, it's building out these things so there's less work on the manual side and you don't have to employ as many people, and it's more consistent and it's easier to track and control. So where do you see that hybridization going long term for the sort of marriage between a person and an actual automated system handing off to each other? Where do you see that going?
I only see it getting stronger, and the two being used more together. Because like I said, but again, it does depend on the product itself. In the lower priced services, you're going to see a lot more automation. You see it now. I mean, you have the web chat wizards that, you don't even have an opportunity to speak with someone anymore directly. You basically get a menu, and it's the AI that's supposed to guide you in the right direction. And it's extremely frustrating, but there's a pain tolerance because you're not talking about, a $10,000 or $5,000 purchase, right? You're talking about a software that's probably $25 to $100, right?
Yeah.
So it really comes down to, whatever market you're in. Higher price services, I think a hybrid, like a dentist, for example, there's potential for a really high lifetime value for a customer. So of course, you're not going to, you don't need to take a massive amount of time with every single lead that hits that web chat, right? Every time. You can use some automation to guide them. But like I said, like what we're doing, right, is if you can use that automation in the very beginning to have the serious non-tire kicker raise their hand, I think you're great. And so I only see that in the future being used more and more and more. What I don't see a lot of is businesses using the messaging system. We were one of the first in our niche to do it, to run ads straight to Messenger at all. This was about 4 years ago. No one was doing that at the time. Everyone was, you run an ad to a webinar, opt in, a fake webinar, and you'd register for it. And
the live webinar thing.
Yeah.
Totally live.
Yeah. We created a system called Conversion Conversations, which is basically teaching people how to run ads to Messenger. And now a lot more people are doing it. Back then Facebook didn't have their ads to Messenger or anything. We had to get pretty technical with it and use JSON, or we were running links to REF links to ManyChat and doing some crazy things so we wouldn't get our ad account shut down. But so now it's a lot easier. So I hope that more businesses will do that, because all it's going to do is create the relationship and the trust factor faster. Now, those people who are taking those messages are not our salespeople. We call them setters, right? Messengers, setters. They're really just sort of a gatekeeper, and trying to nurture. So once someone comes into our ecosystem, they go get that lead magnet. They're watching the content that we're giving them. We also have email, text. Now they're in our marketing system. So we have other touch points that are trying to follow with them. The messengers are really there to sort of hold their hand through that nurturing process. And that's our goal. We keep a really close eye on our very first touch with a lead and the time that they close. And we're always trying to shrink that window down more and more. So we'll also incorporate things like live events or things that are, time, put some time scarcity in there to help people make a decision, right? To either take action or not take action. But all that is people oriented, right? It's the combination of the two that go hand in hand.
So that also brings up the next point, right? There's been a lot of talk around customers are getting more complex in the sense that they can do a lot of their research up front, which they would have had to do with like a salesperson. For example, the proliferation of information is more readily available for the customer, so they can get to the point of awareness before even talking to anybody. So how does the automation stuff feed into that? So how do you know, or how do you guys structure the automations to feed the right type of information to get the target clients to the point of awareness where they think now's the right time to start a messenger conversation or whatever that flow looks like? But how do you guys build that out then? So that when people come through to a sales conversation, it's like...
Yeah, it's pretty simple. So depending on what lead magnet they're coming in, our initial automation that they get is just delivery of that, and typically a follow-up message to encourage like a free consultation based on their lead magnet. So let's say, for example, we have one of ours is a Facebook Ads Academy. It's a little, it's a pretty extensive course, but we give it to them for free. So they come in, they register for it, they get it. The first message is, hey, congratulations, here's your access to it. So excited to have you on board. Here's a little bit about who we are. The next message obviously comes the next day. Just as a follow-up, hey, as a bonus, we're going to give you a free strategy session with one of our experts to help you kind of point you in the right direction. Obviously, that's a setter conversation. It's a 50-minute call to kind of see if we can get them on our 60-minute call. From there, we plug everyone into the same nurture sequence, which is really just designed to build trust. So it's value. So it's not a hard pitch for anything. It's really just value that goes along with their lead magnet. So obviously, in this example, if it's a Facebook advertiser or someone who's trying to advertise their business, our ultimate goal is to get them into our coaching program. Okay. And so what we're feeding them is ongoing information about ad strategy and optimization for their ads. So all of that nurture sequence is themed, if you will, based on how they came into our system. We have other ones that they go along with our messaging strategy, the conversion conversations that I told you about. We have another one where we teach IG shout outs. It's another marketing strategy. So all of these things have their own custom automations that follow the same structure. So the first two messages deliver content, offer a strategy session. And then the nurture sequence is a long, I think our standard is about 14 messages over about 32 days, where they're getting constant value. And there's subtle hints to schedule a free call in most of them, if not all of them. And that works really well. And in between that, we will institute one text every 10 days and then a voicemail drop a couple of times through that whole process as well. And then in combination of that, we're also trying to push people to our social platforms. So our Facebook, we have a free Facebook group that we try to funnel all of our leads into. That's used. It's a major source of nurturing. We have what we call a testimonials tank page that has all of our testimonials on it, so people can see different industries and different types of coaches that we've worked with. So we nurture with that. We push people there. Our sales team, if they get on the phone with someone who's skeptical or they need to think about it, they're not ready, they'll put them in the Facebook group, tag them into a specific testimonial. We have a database of testimonials that are specific, so they know exactly where they are and they can tag them in that video. That helps the nurture process. There's automation that's set up to fire for our messengers to re-engage people that have that booked a call but didn't close. And that will file off initial conversation. And if they reply, those people will reply. So it's a pretty extensive workflow is the language that we use, right?
Yeah.
It's a pretty extensive workflow to keep people in our ecosystem. We do things like if they don't open an email or respond in a 30-day window, we pull them out. We do things like that, just to, some strategies to make sure that our email open rates are good. Our engagement is good. It just helps kind of with our list hygiene, if you will. But yeah, I mean, it's a pretty involved process. We'll do a monthly challenge to
Mm-hmm.
re-engage leads. And obviously we'll blast out in all of our different channels to try to, to get people to do that. So that's a live
Mm-hmm.
in-person event.
Mm-hmm.
And has a really good, strong closing ratio. We usually get 20 to 30% of the people who will close into our program who attend those.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, pretty involved.
Nice. And then also the last sort of question, because again, we spoke about the account management stuff, and then I'll let you go, because I can ask way too many questions about this stuff because I'm fascinated by it. Is the sort of account management and nurturing once somebody comes on board, right? So normally, if it's a little bit more of a complex thing, like a software like Oracle, for example, you'll have a sort of account manager assigned to a book of business, and they'll be your primary point of contact for cross-selling and upselling and this type of stuff. What's happened with the sort of coaching space on this? Because it's not necessarily as flexible. You have sort of a set curriculum for the coaching that you do, and then that's what you get, right? So
Yeah.
how is
So
the automations and workflows expanded
ours
on
is
that?
our coaching is 1-to-1, which means when they come in, we have a client success director who's in charge of onboarding,
Mm-hmm.
and then connecting them with one of our coaches. And their coaches will do their initial, kickoff call, and then they have scheduled in-person sessions throughout their program with us. So it's pretty hands-on, and the client success director oversees all of the accounts. So they're always
Mm-hmm.
kind of overseeing and checking and making sure that the reviews are coming through, because our customers will review their coaches
Mm-hmm.
with our client success director. That's an automation that is sent out.
Mm-hmm. For the
And
reviews.
then
For the
all of the,
reviews.
yeah, for the asking for the reviews, and all of our check-ins are all automated.
Mm-hmm.
Every text or email or voicemail drop that is sent to our clients is all automated. The
Mm-hmm.
clients themselves have the ability to reach out whenever they want. If
Mm-hmm.
there's a major issue, they need to hop on a Zoom with a coach, they will do that. So our
Mm-hmm.
coaches will typically have on average about 60 to 70 clients each.
Mm-hmm.
And it's manageable in our space. And most of our clients are the same way with theirs. And some of our coaches, especially in the fitness, can handle a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
They might be doing group coaching as well, which they can handle even more.
Mm-hmm.
So the automation really is a supplement for in the one-to-one space. There are some people who do pure group coaching. There is no one-to-one, and it's 100% automated, except for, maybe they do a once a week live training in their group or something. The bigger types of businesses that we work with that are outside of the coaching space, because we do have some solar companies, some people who are in the higher premium service type companies. They have an account representative they're doing weekly calls with them, weekly check-ins. They're doing, automated reports like our agency does. We send our clients a weekly report on their ads data. The account manager will check in with them regularly. We use Basecamp. It's a project management software like Monday or something like that, that allows us to be in constant engagement with our clients. We can automate some of the things in that too, using Zapier, which is helpful. So like I said before, it's a pretty constant game of automation with human interaction. The automation really is never going to outperform the one-to-one, obviously, but it's there to supplement, right? It's there to be
Right.
the backup to make sure that that clients feel like they're getting touched. And I cannot tell you the number of people that reply, "Thank you for checking in," thank you, thanking us for doing something that was automated.
Yeah.
So it goes a long way.
Which feeds into the personalization thing that you spoke about, right? Because it's not
Yeah.
just a generic, "Hey, would love a review," or "Hey, insert first name here," if you ever had that mistake happen in automations, where it's still the custom value sort of response. So as I mentioned earlier, the point of this is to sort of help educate salespeople on what to look for. So as a person who works with a lot of coaches in the space and building these things out, if a salesperson is thinking of going to go work for a company, what should they keep an eye out for and sort of ask to know whether it's a good time to go and do sales for this place? Because I've been in terrible situations where they had none of this stuff, and it makes the salesperson's life very hard. And it also makes the relationship between the owner and the salesperson very tense because things slip through the cracks. All right. So what sort of key things do you think salespeople should look for if they're going to go work for like a coach that is implementing stuff similar to you guys at Elite 360?
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's got to be the offer. You got to be able to look at an offer and know that there's potential for it, right? Because just because someone wants to attach a sales team to something doesn't mean it's going to be able to sell, right? It doesn't matter how good you
Tell
are.
me about it.
Yeah. So that's the first thing, right? Is the offer, does it have value? And to do that research, it's pretty easy. If there's people advertising, if you do a simple Google search, a few searches for some terms, if there's people advertising against it, there's market, right? If there's someone selling that content on Udemy, or if there's Facebook groups about that niche, there's money to be made. Okay. And if that's there, then my question next would be, obviously where are the leads coming from? Am I going to be responsible for my own lead generation? Do I have to go out and farm, or am I dealing with inbound leads? Inbound is what we give our sales team. They have the easiest job in the world to make multiple six figures a year. It's just here. Because our messengers are doing some of that work too. Like I told you, we're using the automation to bring them in, get them interested. Our messaging, that setter is basically serving it to them on a platter and saying, here, this person is hot, take them. So basically what I'm getting at is a good question to ask is, what kind of inbound infrastructure is in place to identify good prospects? If they don't have one, if they just have a database of names, that's going to be a problem. Well, it would be a problem for me. If it would be a problem for our sales team, they wouldn't want to do it. I can tell you that right now. So because they get whiny when they, when they've had 10 calls in a row and they haven't had a close, they're angry. So, which trust me, I am too. I'm the head of our marketing team. So I want as many sales as we possibly can. So that's why we have that constant communication about quality that I was talking about.
Yeah, with the meetings you mentioned.
Yeah, so that would be what I'd want to know. Is the offer solid? Do they have a good structure for inbound lead generation? And obviously, what do the numbers look like? What kind of volume is the company doing? If we're trying to place a salesperson with one of our coaches or with one of our coaching clients, if they're doing $40K a month in revenue, there's not a lot of potential there, right? For a salesperson. Yes, maybe they can help them improve, but if they're just going to take over sales, if they're in the 10 to 15% commission range, that's not a huge amount of money. So, if I'm evaluating a company that I'm working with and they're, hey, yeah, we're doing $1 million a month in sales. Our average salesperson's earning, $250,000 a year. You've got some numbers to work with. So,
right.
To recap, it's offer, it's lead generation strategy and system, and then revenue potential.
Yeah, if you're planning on making 3,000 to 4,000 as a salesperson, you want to know at least at a 10% commission, the company is making at least 90% of that for you to extract the 10%, which makes sense. I've heard that philosophy floating around a lot. Ben, thank you very much. I appreciate the conversation. I don't know if there's anything else that you still want to mention, where people can go find you, if you're open to networking to people, or if you just prefer to be left alone and never talk to a person ever. I'd understand. But where can people go find out more about Elite 360?
You can go to elite360.io, not .com, but .io, and you can reach out to us there. But, I think that'd be good.
Cool. Thank you very much.
All right, man.